Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wisdom Wednesday for this week. So remember, with our Wisdom Wednesday, this is just a generalized spiritual discussion based on the energies that we are working with for this week. And this week, what really came through was us letting go of the aspects of our we'll call egoic self go, so that more and more of our true self may shine forth, may come forward. And so that's why tonight's topic is the self that we are. And that's what we're going to be talking about, the self that we are, the truth that we are, but we're also going to be looking at what we are not and why we so gravitate towards that which we are not on a consistent basis. So that is tonight's topic. And I want to start off with telling you all what you already know intuitively and what you may understand as a concept, but maybe are not fully embodying in every way, shape, and form. And that's fine, because we're all doing that work. We are all attempting to embody the truth of who we are in every way, shape, and form. So what we are is a divine spark. What we are is creation. What we are is light. What we are is joy. What we are is happiness. What we are is what Spirit created us to be. There's a beautiful lesson in A Course in Miracles that says, I am as. Now, of course, the Course in Miracles is written in very Christian terms, but in very non-traditional ways. Now, it uses the word God, and if you have a problem with the word God, that's okay. Just substitute it for your higher power. So, I am as divine compassion created me, whole, pure, perfect, protected, and provided for in all ways. Or I am as divine as divinity created me. Or I am as God created me. Love created me loving. Kindness created me kind. Joy created me joyful. Playfulness created me playful. Peace created me peaceful. That is what we are in truth. Eternity made me eternal. That's all that we are in truth. Now, that is the truth of who we are. We are eternal, we are constant, we are forever one with our Creator, and constantly out extending. And what is extension but creation? And that is what the divine does on a consistent basis, and that is what we are asked to do as well, to continue to extend. Now, what we have seemingly done is we have made a mask, and actually we've made several masks over that truth of who we are. And we can call that mask the ego. And the ego is just our personality self. Hey Shirley, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. So our ego is, again, it's that personality self. It is that self that we think that we are. That self that has been molded based on our upbringing, based on environment, based on parentage, and so forth and so on. Like, that is what our ego is. It is not the truth of us. It may shimmer and shine, and it may have some elements of the truth of us, but it is not the truth of us. And that's something that we really have to get very clear. The ego is not the truth of us. It may have little flecks of what is seeming to be a reflection of the truth of us. And for example, like if you are someone who is very kind and compassionate, that's great. That's wonderful. That's part of your essential essence, leaking through that mask. However, the ego, just like spirit will use whatever the ego has made in order to help you get to peace. But the ego will use whatever spirit has created in order to fulfill its means as well. And so we just have to be very aware of that. So the personality self, that false self that we think that we are, is not only made up of those, different things that I mentioned, it's also made up of concepts. And what do I mean by concepts? It's made up of who we think we are based on what we do. So for me, for a very long time, I had a self-concept of I am a daycare teacher. That was my self-concept for a very long time. because I had been told again and again, you would make a great teacher. You'd make a great teacher. Kids love you. You'd make a great teacher. And so I adopted that role of a preschool teacher. And it was great, and it served me for a time. But see, here's what Spirit is always doing. Spirit is always attempting to help us get to that truth of who we are. And that can only be done with guidance. Okay? And it is not guidance that comes from you. It is guidance that comes through the divine, that is within you. So it's there in you, but it is not of you. And just like, we could talk about strength. There is a strength in you that is not of you, because it's coming from that divine place within you. And so for me personally, and that's the only place I can really speak from on undoing the concepts and the personality and all these different things. Do I still have a personality? Of course I do. I'm still here. I still have a body. So I still believe in the body to an extent. I still believe in a personality to an extent. But Spirit is slowly but surely unwinding my mind, if you will, from this false image of myself that I have made. And based on what I do, my upbringing, my environment, so forth and so on. And so the biggest way that Spirit really did that for me was through my daycare job. So at my daycare job, I would, take care of the kids, and that was kind of it. And I kept on getting the intuitive impulse to you need to start your own spiritual business, because I was already doing spiritual things. I was giving people readings. I was doing healings at work. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff. And it was great because I had so many willing participants. And so what had occurred was Spirit's like, okay, we need to start unwinding you from this concept that you've made, because I was so afraid to branch out and do something else, because I was like, no, I got to stay here at KinderCare, because KinderCare is who I am, and it's what I do, and it is my source of all my provisioning. And if I quit and I go do this spiritual stuff, no, it's not going to happen. I have a fantastic personality. However, always looking for validation, still needs to do a lot of work on me. That's okay. All of our personalities are looking for validation in one way, shape, form, or another. And so for me, what started to occur was that, so Spirit started to slowly but surely unwind my mind. Now, to me, it looked like Spirit took everything from me, everything that was dear to my heart, everything that was of value to me. It seemed as if it was taken away from me. And I remember, for me personally, I went into a 6-month depression. I did. It happened. And a lot of people are like, I don't believe that. You're too happy. You're too peppy. You practice too much spiritual stuff. No, there was a 6 months of depression where I didn't eat a lot. I still ate because I like food. But where I didn't eat a lot, where I just kind of secluded myself and was just like, I'm going to shut out the world. And this was Spirit's way. Again, it's not that Spirit wanted me to suffer. And I want to make that very clear. This was not Spirit's way of saying, Ron, you need to suffer in order to gain the truth. Not at all. I was suffering because I chose the suffering. I chose to see this as everything being taken away from me, instead of seeing it for what it truly was, which was an unwinding of my mind and of who I thought I was and who I thought I needed to be and where my abundance really came from. And so within that time, I was going through my own stuff, going through my own dark night of the soul, if you will. But it was with guidance of the Holy Spirit, or guidance of Spirit, angels, guides, whatever you want to call your higher power, that assisted me in seeing so many aha moments for myself, being like, wow, I so identified myself and my self-worth, my self-concept, my provisioning on what I did. I was like, if I'm not doing this, or if I'm not doing something, I'm worthless. I'm a moocher. I'm a this. I'm a that. So many thoughts rose up, and I had to do a lot of forgiveness on them. And it was a lot of forgiveness of myself. for believing that I was just the concept that I had made, that I was just the job, that I was just the doer of the things. And now I was just the daycare teacher. Now that I wasn't a daycare teacher anymore, that's it. My life was ruined. And I will tell you all, I remember in the car saying to my mom, I've been blackballed and that's it. Like I can never work in daycare again. That's it. My life is over. I remember telling her my life is over. And my mom was like, your life isn't over. Like you're fine. Everything's going to work out. And I was like, it's not, but still in the throes of that belief that everything was being taken away from me. And I was like, wow. So again, this concept that we have built of ourselves seems like it is who we are. It seems like it is everything. And then Spirit slowly but surely reveals to us, it's not. This is not even a tenth of a tenth of a tenth of a quadrillionth of what you are. This is just a false image of yourself that you have made to cover over the truth of who you are because you are afraid of the truth of who you are. There's a beautiful Marianne Williamson's quote, or maybe it was the Nelson Mandela quote, I can't remember who, but they basically say, you are not afraid of darkness. You are afraid of your light. You are afraid of how powerful you truly are. And we all are. And that's why we've created these masks that we wear around. And here's the thing. You can definitely tell with these masks that they're very flimsy and impermanent because they shift and they change all the time, right? Like our personalities are shifting, changing on a consistent basis. And it's not good, it's not bad, it's just something to recognize and be like, wow, the truth of who I am never changes. It's always at peace, it's always happy, it is always one with the divine. But this personality self that I have made is always shifting and changing and coagulating and, disassembling, reassembling in new configurations. And it just shows how flimsy it really is and how it has no power. Like we disassemble our egos all the time and create new ones. Think about when you say like a New Year's resolution, and this is something that I changed a long time ago, where people used to be like, oh my God, new year, new me. New you? Why do you need a new you? You are already perfect. You don't need a new you. What you might need is to take off the mask of who you think you are. That sounds great. So I always said, instead of like new year, new me, I always said it basically comes down to the new year, true me. So new year, true me. That's what I want. I want the truth of me to come out more and more. I want the authentic part of me to be revealed. I want that light, that love, that joy, that compassion to come out. And we know that we are on that pathway, number one, if we're having parts of our ego being triggered. If there's a part of if your ego is being triggered, that's a great sign because it means that Spirit is able to bring forth some things to you, some triggers to awaken you and to be like, wow, do I really want this concept of myself that I've made? Like, do I still want this? Is this still the truth of who I am? And I'll give you another great example of this, which is my own hair journey, like my own hair growth journey, if you will. There was a while, I think it was back about a year or so ago, and I started noticing my hair was thinning on top, and I was like, oh my gosh, like for a long time, my hair was a big part of my identity. It was like, oh my God, I'm losing my hair. That means I'm losing myself. And of course, I honored it, I accepted it, I was compassionate with myself, but I also laughed at myself to be like, wow, I am saying that the only reason people watch me, the only reason people like me is because of my hair. Like, how silly is that? And we all do it. It may not be with your hair. Maybe it's the way your body looks or your skin or your eyes or, whatever the case may be. And we all do it. We all do it. We all base who we think we are based on the body. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't take care of the body, and it doesn't mean that if you want to take, whatever you want to take to help you, that you do so. It's fine. It's just acknowledging that, okay, I see that I have put a lot of value on who I think I am that's based on external things, when really everything that I am is within me and whole and pure and perfect and protected and provided for in all ways. Oh, thank you, Shirley. Thank you. But that's it. That's the joy and the beauty is we have to allow those triggers, those opportunities for growth to rise up so that we can see where we are still putting value on this false self, on the ego, and saying, yep, that's who I am. I'm not my hair. I'm not my glasses. I'm not my body. And the way that the Course in Miracles really explained it very well is basically you'll know that you are embodying more of the true self, the truth of who you are, when people just seem to think of you and they're at peace. When they think of you and they like this sense of peace comes over them. That's it. And I thought that was beautiful when I read that. I was like, wow. And another way is you just seem to radiate light. You just seem to, and it's not necessarily a light that you can see. It's like the light in your eyes. And it's just like people can see that and they're just drawn to it because they sense that spark of excitement, that spark of innocence and joy and happiness and the truth of who you are. They are sensing that authenticity. And so something that we have to, again, come back to a realization of, and this was actually brought to my attention by, it was actually brought to, my inspiration. It was actually a point of inspiration that I had a client of mine ask me, what about self-esteem? Like, I have really low self-esteem. I've just never felt good enough, so forth and so on. And I was like, well, I have been there as well. But then it comes back to that lesson. I am as God created me. So which self, and again, if God doesn't feel good to you, it's just your higher power. I'm just going to use God. You'll hear me either say God or spirit. You'll hear me interchange them throughout the whole broadcast here. But what we want to do is, which self are we valuing? Are we valuing the self that we have made? Are we esteeming that? Are we valuing that? Or are we valuing more of the truth of who we are? And that's it. It's just like, that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Am I valuing the truth of who I am, which is change less? Or am I valuing this mask that I have made that is changeable, that is constantly in flux, and that I destroy just to pick up a new one and put it on? And that is really to me, the essence of self-esteem. Which self are you valuing? So when we have these thoughts about like, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not handsome enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this enough, we need to stop ourselves in our tracks and say, wait a minute, hold up. Do I want to value... Oh, hey, Juliet. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. Do I want to value these thoughts that are telling me that I am less than whole? Do I want to value those? Or do I want to value the truth of who I am? Do I want to value the love that I am, the compassion that I am, the kindness, the joy, the love? Like, what do I want to value? And that's all that's really we have to do. But we get so stuck in the, I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not this enough. The truth of who you are is more than enough. It is enough. It is the all of all. It is worthy of everything. But it's this false evidence. It's this false self that says, I'm not good enough. And you want to know what? It's not. It's not good enough. Not for you, not for the truth of you, because the truth of you is exultant. The truth of you is vibrant. The truth of you is purity and light and can never be contained within a vessel made of nothing more than dust and water. That, right there, dust and water. That's all the body really is. And again, I'm not saying don't take care of the body, don't pay attention to the body. You can, of course. But again, realize who you truly are and allow the body to be what the Spirit would allow it to be, which is a vessel of communication. See, we try to say the body is the doer, the body is who I am, the body is this, the body is that. The body is not the truth of who I am. The body is merely a vessel for communication while I still believe I am separate. So just think about that. Like, am I using, and again, ask yourself, am I using my body for purely communication, or am I using it to, quote unquote, make my money? Am I doing it to, quote unquote, get this or go there or do this or do that? Am I saying my body is the doer? Well, again, my body is merely the communication device, and it may be called to act upon things, but again, who is the one that is doing the action? It's Spirit doing it for us and through us. Again, and the ego says, no, I'm the doer. I'm doing this. It's not, no, it's me, I'm doing it. And that's another thing with the ego. The ego is all about me, I, where the Spirit is all about unity. It's all about love. It's all about like what is good for everyone in a situation. And that, again, that's the true self. The false self is, it's all about me. It's all about I. Again, not telling you not to take care of yourself, not telling you not to care about yourself. But the self that you want to care about is the truth of who you are. That's what you want to care about. That's what you want to focus on. We could go into, the inner child is a part of me, but again, we don't want to separate ourselves into different selves, because then what are we doing? We're following the ego's verdicts and saying, yeah, separation is real, because now the eternity that I am, the oneness that I am, is now the inner child, and is now the inner adult, and is now the inner old lady, and is now the inner old man, and is now the inner crone, and is now the inner goddess, is now the inner god, is now the inner this. We have so many inner things. We have one being. We are one being of divine love, light, joy, happiness, and intelligence. That is what we are. And if you want to separate that self, then you're just going back into those egoic viewpoints of separation, because that's what the ego is. It is the idea of separation. We want to remember we are one. We are one self. And that's another big key here. And I know I've caught myself doing it before as well. Being like, well, my spirit is saying this, but my ego is saying this. No. What's really happening is your ego is having a discussion with itself. That's it. And that's something that I learned, and I loved when I learned that my ego is just having a conversation with itself. It's just arguing with itself, because spirit doesn't argue. The truth of who you are knows. It has intricate knowledge, and it knows. It says, I don't need to fight. This is it. Like this, here's the answer. Here's your guidance, because it's connected to the all that is. And so it just says, here's your guidance. Where the ego says, well, there might be this, but then, the spiritual ego jumps in and says, well, you should be doing this. You should know better. If there's a should, or like this kind of back and forth, my spirit saying this, my ego saying this, I'm going to tell you right then and there, at least in my experience, it's your ego and your spiritual ego. So it's still just your ego. It's just playing, again, wearing a different mask, playing a different part. Our spirit knows. And that's it. If we trust that knowing, great, wonderful. And if we don't, that's okay. Spirit's always going to guide us. Spirit's always going to be there for us. But the key here is, what do you want to value? Do you want to value this back and forth? My ego says this, but my spirit says this. So now, again, there's this separation. Now there's two selves. Now there's this big higher self and this lower inner self. No, there is simply spirit. That is all that there is. And then there is what we can call the illusion of a self that we have made, which is the ego. And the ego only has the power that we give it. It only has the focus that we give it, the attention that we give it. That is the only power that the ego has. All power is of our divine self. We are just kind of, again, because we're wearing this mask as the divine being, we are inadvertently imbuing that mask with what seems to be power. But it has no power. As soon as you take off the mask, it loses all the power because it never had it. The power is coming from you. You are the source of that power. You are the source of that love, that joy, that happiness. Again, another key way to see the ego looks for situational happiness, while spirit simply looks for present peace. I don't know where that came from or who said it. I don't know if it was just a random thing that came through right now, but I really like that. So the ego looks for situational happiness. Is everything going the way I think it should? Is everyone acting the way that I think they should? Is everything going according to my plan? Where spirit is, I am here, and I am allowing all things to unfold exactly as they will, because I acknowledge that even if things are not happening the way that I think that they should, they are always happening for me, because spirit is always, always, always helping me to awaken to the truth of who I am on a consistent basis. And it will bring forth these witnesses. It will bring forth these circumstances, just like it brought them forth with me, to help me to unwind from everything I think I am and everything I think I know, so that I may come to the realization of what I really am. I can't teach you what you are. I can't. I wish I could. I can't teach you what you are. And nor can really the divine teach you who you are. What the divine can do is, again, unwrap the gift that you are. That's what it can help you do. It can help you to unwrap the truth of who you are. It can help to assist you in acknowledging the truth of who you are, but it can't necessarily teach you about the truth of who you are. You know, we've all heard all the same things. We're light, we're love, we're joy, we're multidimensional, we're this, we're that. And we may understand it as a concept, but if you are not wholly joyful, then you're only understanding it on one level. You're only understanding it on one level. And again, I'm still there as well. I'm not wholly joyful all the time. I have my, what I call 4K moments, where the world just seems brighter, crisper, and I just have a smile on my face for no reason. There's no earthly reason. I didn't win the lottery. Something didn't go in my favor. I'm just out walking, and all of a sudden, everything just gets crisp and clear. And I just feel this happiness that wells up from deep within me, and it just comes out, and it just feels so good. And whenever it happens, I just sit in it for as long as possible and just allow it. And I'm just like, yes, this is it. This is the truth. And part of that happiness comes when I get to speak like this, when I get to have deep discussions like this, because this is something that is part of extension. I am extending that which I know, which brings me great joy and happiness. So anytime you are extending something out of love, know that you are embodying more of the truth of who you are, because the truth of who you are is extension. That is what you are. And so before I jump off here, because I have about 2 more minutes, I do want to just open it up to, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns based on anything that I've said. I know that we were going to talk about the truth of who we are and what we really are, and I think we did, but I also think we talked about who we are not. So if there's any questions or comments, I welcome them now. And if not, you can go ahead and just leave me a little heart in the comments, or leave me a thumbs up in the comments, so I know there are no current active questions. And again, if you are watching the replay, no worries. You can always ask your question, and I will do my very best to get back to you as soon as possible. And I do want to invite you to remember that the question that you ask should be based on the topic that we're talking about now, or at least within that realm of what we're talking about. You are welcome. It was my pleasure. Again, remember with everything that we went over, and again, you can always watch the replay. The replay will be up on YouTube. It'll be in my group, Awakening Miracles. It'll be here on Facebook. Of course, you can always go back and view it. It'll be on Twitter tomorrow, or just like a Twitter feed of the YouTube video, because I usually will upload this tonight for tomorrow. So again, just keeping it open for questions. And again, if you're watching the replay, no worries. You can always ask your question in the comments, and I'll do my very best to get back to you as soon as possible. For those of you that joined me live, I want to thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being here. And I will talk with you all soon. Bye for now.